Here we are, we've arrived at our campground, and unfortunately they told us that our site here at Thousand Trails may not have a full hookup. So this is what we typically do. We find an empty lawn spot and we unhook the car, and then after we unhook the car, we take this around the campground to look for an empty spot suitable for our needs. I mean, obviously we don't want to have a graded campsite. And here's Scott, he's just unhooking the Toad. Oh, by the way, RV lingo, the Toad is the vehicle that you're towing. And ideally we want to find a full hookup site, but we know that that's not promised. Luckily, we found a spot with sewer and full hookups, so now we just mark it with our little piece of paper. Voila. Now Scott's gonna go get the RV and we set up camp. And now Scott just has to back in the RV into our site, but he has to unhook the tow dolly first so that he can actually reverse. This thing's pretty heavy. Do you need help, Dad? Now he's backing up. Usually I stand kind of behind, centered by the camera, so he can get to follow me and see where I'm going. And then I make hand signals on where he needs to go. Luckily we have a pretty spacious site here today, so I'm not too worried about banging into something else like a post. Backing up pretty close to the sewer. We want to be as close as we can to the sewer, obviously, so that we could connect easily. And he's pretty close to the tow dolly there, but you know, he's a really good driver, so he'll do just fine. Usually he comes out, we weigh out the premises, you know, how angled we are, our distance to the sewer, which is a little tad far right now. Alright, so we're a little bit too far back and he's just going to probably drive like a foot or two closer to the sewer. Now people usually have like a 15-foot sewer hose. We have 15 plus 15, so we can actually double it up, but it's a pain to connect them because of the threads on the hose, you'll see later. So we prefer to keep the connections at 15 feet or less, just so that we can minimize the amount of work that we have to do. And what Dad's doing right now is, I think he's setting down the jacks. And those are the jacks down there, and he's laying them down. There's jacks down on the rear side as well. We'll watch that in action. And the jacks help the bus keep things level in the cabin, so that way we're not tilted to one side. It's also really helpful because the refrigerator uses ammonia, and the refrigerator works best when it's level and not tilted. We have a level site, so it's really easy to put the leveling jacks down. Usually we're not so lucky, and then tires end up rising, which is not good, especially for the rear tires since this is rear wheel drive. So once you're in the driver's seat, you can kind of see with the levelings. So this one's side to side. We're off kilter by about half a degree, but that's not a big deal. Usually, like if we stay, you know, 3 or below, usually about 1, you're set. Of course, 0 is perfect though. And then here's the front to back level, and we're off kilter, tilted forward a bit by like 1/4 of a degree, half a degree. Not a big deal. Did that since I'm filming this. He wants to have a beer in his hand because it makes him look cooler, so he had to go grab cold. First things first is you want to hook up to power. You want to be able to connect up to power so that you can have your microwave oven working, your refrigerator working, all that stuff. There you go, breaker's on. And we want to make sure that all lights are green here, so it means a good connection. And then now he's connecting sewer. The threads on this sewer is pretty tight, so you know, we prefer to keep it 15 feet or less, not have to connect up the second sewer hose. What's also crucial here is that the sewer hose should be on a downhill angle, that way everything flows downward and nothing gets caught stuck or anything. Also, it's really important to have a tight fit, that way there's no leaks. And then we also have this handy dandy sewer ramp that allows us to make sure that the sewage hose goes down in a nice straight line. It's always downhill and it's always supported as well. Especially when the gray water runs down here, it could get pretty heavy, so these sewer struts are actually really crucial. We didn't think that they were in the beginning, but now that we've done this many, many times, they're nice to have and probably a need to have. So after power, sewage connection, next is fresh water. And we have this nice little filter here. First he connects the filter to the water, runs it through, makes sure that any kind of dirty stuff is kind of flushed out a bit. It's really important too to have a really long freshwater hose because you just never know how far you are from fresh water. I think we bought a 50 feet one, and that little knob thing near the freshwater connection is a pressure gauge. A lot of campgrounds, if they're in lower level areas, the water pressure could get really, really high, and that could damage your internal pipes. So in order to make sure that our Bessie has adequate water pressure, or you know, the right amount, we set it to about 40 on the gauge, and it ensures our plumbing in there stays healthy and minimizes leaks. Alright, so that's the outside, that's done. Now typically simultaneously I would be bumping out and doing the inside. An optional thing that we do once we make camp is pull out our awnings, especially when it's not too windy out and the awnings are not at risk for being damaged. Tomorrow, where we're at, it's going to be 101 degrees, so we want to make sure that we are shielded away from the sun as much as possible. So we pulled out our main big awning. We have our little awnings here and here. So 2 for the bedroom, and then 1 more for the living room. While Scott's outside, I'm usually in here breaking camp. So first things first is I gotta get rid of this, which kind of keeps our slides intact. I mean, of course it's like a weak link, but it kind of keeps everything together, like kind of like a sports bra, so to speak. So I just basically loosen up the straps before we bump out. We have this little makeshift cardboard thing that keeps the cat away from the brakes. We had a situation once before where the cat actually went to the gas pedal, and that was no bueno. That was very, we were lucky we didn't die. So we made up this little like barrier for the cat with a cardboard box, and this has been used ever since we started RVing, and it's just kind of a barrier to keep the cat away. But if I left this and I bumped out the slides, it could easily get caught on the motor, so we wanted to make sure that this is away. Ava, can you make sure that the cat is where you can see him? Mm-hmm. Okay, now we bump out. Ava, are we clear on this slide? Usually Scott's outside making sure that we're not going to hit any barriers, but since we have a site that's pretty wide, I'm not really too worried. So we have these really cool slides that actually come down as you slide it out. Watch. Usually slides just go outward, but then ours actually goes out and then down. Oop. Sometimes it could be pretty jarring, but now you see, now the floor is really flush with the rest of the cabin. Okay, next thing, bedroom. Turn on the lights. Also making sure that all the control panels are good. We don't need water pump now that we're connected to city water. It's about 4 o'clock at night in the afternoon, and it takes a while for the water heater to heat up, so I want to turn on the water heater for our showers tonight. We're hooked up to 50 amps. Everything's a go. Black water is at 1/3. So at 1/3 I'm not really too worried, but once like black water gets to 2/3 level, I want to be able to dump. Alright, everything's a go. Now move on to the bedroom. And we're going to pull out this little button here. And we're going to recovering from a cold right now, so still lots of sniffles. Okay. Should have checked whether those slippers were in the way, but luckily they weren't. And now we're pushed out. Everything should be good. Alrighty. Next thing is we want to make sure that everything's put in place. So the leaf of the table comes out. We got to pull out. Ava likes to open cabinet doors before they're ready. And then we got to take the trash can, put it into place. So if there's anything about human beings is that we create a lot of trash. Alright. And then the water bowl needs to go so that kitty cat can have his water. And then Mama has to get ready to make sure that this place is nice and tidy, and we created a lot of dishes while we were on the road because we were lunching at a rest stop. So I gotta do all these dishes. Ava has to fold out the tables so that we can have some workable space. Usually when she's at school, we need this all folded out so that we can get to work right away when we set up camp. And there's Boris. He's usually just chilling. Okay, let's put the chairs together. Daddy's got a chair from underneath the bed for our third chair. And then Mr. Boris gets carried on a chariot to his location. Great. Last but not least, the ottoman needs to be ready for some relaxing. And there we are. That took a total of 10 minutes.